So fuck yes, welcome after the hype. Your host, always Brian Darso. With me as always, Jonathan Hardesty, CHEWIE Darso, and Emily Blake.
You did it. Hi, I'm here.
Is that the secret?
Yeah,
just stopping?
Just not stopping. I think that's how I'm going to have to do it for the rest of time, or until next week. So we have two special guests on. Two guests that I have tried to get on multiple times, and it's never worked out either because scheduling or more scheduling. So we have Ray Deslich.
Hello.
Ray, before we go anywhere, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
As far as what I'm working on currently?
Currently, in the past, on TV now, anything?
On TV now is Drunk History.
What?
A lovely show that I set decorate and was nominated for an Emmy for last year.
She was.
Congrats.
Also worked on by the lovely CHEWIE Darso.
Yes.
Who is my
I usually
set
plug
dresser.
it.
That's right. And that's airing right now, every Tuesday on Comedy Central, 10/9 Central, I think. And then also Alone Together on Freeform is airing, which I also did the pilot for.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I see a lot of ads for that on
What's
on
Alone
Facebook.
Together? I'm not familiar with that one.
It's like the awkwardest of awkward comedies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's two young trying to be comedian writers in Los Angeles, just being quirky to each other. But it's pretty good for that. You know, if you like awkward comedies, it's like the most of those.
I'm usually up and down on it. If the awkward never gets cut, then I'm just like, it's torture.
Yeah.
And other special guest we have today is Kyle Smith. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, how's it going?
Quite well. You?
Good.
I don't know how many times I've asked you to be on the show. I'm guessing a lot.
I
at this
just
point.
stopped asking.
Yeah,
It's
I kind of gave up on it
Yeah.
too after a while. And even this one was really just like I put out a Facebook thing like, "Hey, who could be on this one?" And I got a from him. Like, oh, he's available this time.
along with a picture of me in Halloween costume as the lead character from this movie.
So that worked out well. Kyle, what would you like to plug? I'm guessing I know what it is.
You guys have been lovely and plugged it before. I am the founder of Check 15, the monthly Cancer Awareness Day. We put out a cancer awareness video every 15th of every month. Just last month was our 50th video, so we've done 50 months.
Nice.
Thank you. So yeah, you can find that at check15.org and on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Check15.
And you have your like YouTube channel and everything. Like people
Yes,
search
yeah.
it. Okay.
I mean, the website goes to the YouTube channel because we're not quite there yet.
Whatever works.
But yeah.
Cool. And if you guys haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it.
They're fun.
Yeah, they're just
And they
fun.
encourage you to touch yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
Or other people.
yeah. I mean,
Do it
With
together.
permission.
with
Yeah,
permission.
with permission.
So you definitely got me on that one. I was like, no. Okay, so we'll
It's
do
all
it.
in the name of medicine, Brian.
That's fair. Yeah.
Unless you're in gymnastics, and then you're going to hell.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation got weird.
Oh,
Sorry.
they got a real and real awful.
I'm sorry. I've been reading a lot about that lately.
Yeah, don't go to the Olympics apparently. Anyhow, so we'll do a where have you been doing? I will go first. I finally started watching Black Mirror. Everyone under the sun has told me that I will love it and I should watch it, and yeah, I pretty much love it. I don't know how anyone can love the show. Like it kind of boggles my mind. Like it's like, yeah, you can love episodes, but the show is just so.
It's also very exhausting to watch.
Yes, it is.
I love it.
A little
That's
bit,
the
yeah.
main
I love that
reason-
exhausting bleakness.
This is the main reason why I haven't picked it up. I'm like, do I want to feel bad tonight? No, I don't.
Yeah, because the best you can hope for, at least in my opinion, in the show so far, and I'm in season 4 now, but it's basically like, here's a somewhat normal to lovely person, watch them get something horrible happen. And the best you can hope for is that, oh, it turns out they were a horrible person too, so you don't feel bad about it. It's like,
Yeah,
that's
I'm-
the silver lining.
I'm on like season 3, and I think I saw one episode that had a hopeful ending. I was like, oh, this is out of place.
Is that the one with Mackenzie Davis? Because that's so far the only one that I've seen.
The one,
Speaking of Mackenzie.
Speaking of Mackenzie Davis?
the one with Bryce Dallas Howard, the
Oh.
social media one, has like a kind of a
I guess
uplift, like a somewhat like it's like a
Yeah.
hint of an
Yeah.
uplifting ending.
I
Of like,
guess, yeah.
I mean, yeah, her life is destroyed, but
Yeah.
then she finds
like freedom
Some-
of emotion.
yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's so cool.
I was gonna say that's
You're free to be miserable. It's great.
still kind of bleak though.
Yep.
All right, that's it for me.
For
Who wants to go next? We can just go around the table. Ray, why don't you go?
Sure. As far as fun things in the world that we've been seeing or doing, last Saturday was Night on Broadway, which is a massive street festival in downtown LA. And we went to that and saw that and the Derby Dolls, who have some of our friends who've joined as new skaters. Roller derby is still a thing, despite it not being...
I feel like it's continually getting more popular.
2007. Yeah. And for good reason. It's still great, and it was fun to see. And they took over maybe 10 blocks of downtown, turned it into a festival.
One of our prop assistants on Superstore had her shoulder get knocked out of place at one rally.
Ooh, damn.
So she's been walking around in a sling, going, "I can still do everything with one arm."
Thank God we all have health insurance now.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
John, what about you?
So I did something a little bit different this week. I went to a music show at the Viper Room. I went to see the Lillingtons play. I was feeling in a bit of a punk mood, and
Cool.
it was really fun. But as I'm getting on in years, standing for like 5 hours at a time at a show with a bunch of younger people tends to wear on you a little bit.
You don't exactly look very punk.
No, well, yeah, I like how the music is. And
How secretly has a very studded out jacket and dyes his hair black.
And he puts it up in a mohawk before he
Yeah.
goes out. Yeah.
No, see, well, this way I'm noticeable there. Like, look at this guy who stands out. That's so punk. Kind of a
They
twist on
probably-
it.
He's so punk, he doesn't care about being punk.
They probably just assume you have a child somewhere in the crowd. Like, oh, he's just hanging out in the back. waiting
I'm
for
the
his kid to be
dad.
done.
Yeah, I stand back against the wall with the other like
And then Karina's in the
45-year-olds.
mosh pit.
Oh, she could take them all.
I've
But-
been to some punk shows lately with lots of children present. That's just how old we're all getting.
Yeah. No, and one of the opening bands, my friend Tom, not your Tom, but my Tom,
Right.
told me like this band looks kind of like if Mates of States were punk, and it was so true. It was like kind of they looked like they were husband and wife, or at least in a relationship, and they had that kind of cheerful punk vibe, which was very weird.
Who was that?
I'm gonna have to look up the name because I forgot.
So you basically just described Matt and Kim.
Yeah. I tend to not remember the opening band names just because I'm a jerk. But yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun to kind of hear loud music and then have your ears ring for about 5 hours after.
Chewie, what about you?
Honestly, I've been coming home and only watching Grimm. And I already talked about that last week. So
What's this show, Grimm?
I already talked about Grimm. Everyone knows. But something coming up media-wise, Brian and I were lucky enough to get in the lottery for the Elton John tickets. So we scored pretty decent Elton John tickets.
Yeah.
We won't be able to see him for a whole year. But
Gotta love buying concert tickets for a show that's 363 days away.
yeah. But I really appreciate that Elton did what he did.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because what you told me, if I remember, is he bought half the tickets or just a large percent of them?
I'm not sure if he bought them or just reserved them.
Reserved them. So
But,
then
yeah.
he was able to create his own lottery to make sure that fans could buy them before all the scalpers got a hold of them and then put them on resale for an inflated price.
Oh yeah, the seats that we got, I won't say the price here because it's embarrassing that we spent that much. But they're going for triple what we paid now online. It's like, holy fuck. And I was like, ugh, at paying what I paid.
Well, luckily you had that side gig that covered most of it. But
Yeah, that was nice.
I'm just very excited. In a whole
Drugs,
year,
you're
I
selling
get to
drugs
finally see
now.
Elton John, as long as he doesn't die.
Yeah, you just gotta hold on one more year.
And I hope he doesn't die right after the concert, because I did not enjoy going through that with Tom Petty.
Yeah, then we're never going to an old guy ever again because we're jinxed.
Yeah.
We're Brian and Chewie in the audience. You're gonna die.
Say your goodbyes.
I would cry like so much.
You
I
killed
cried
Elton.
at
You
work.
killed Tom Petty.
I had to go to
Yeah.
the bathroom for a little while and cry it out that day when Tom Petty died.
I remember talking to you guys about that because you were supposed to go to Hamilton that
Yeah.
night, but you went to Tom Petty instead. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that, guys.
You would have killed Hamilton.
He's already dead.
No,
Hamilton,
you
you
clearly
dodged
made
the
the
bullet.
right decision.
Yeah, a lot of people thought I was insane, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I mean, my rationale was that Hamilton's a play. It'll always be around. Tom Petty was a limited engagement, not as limited as I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what, I didn't know how limited.
I just want to refer to people as limited engagements now.
Aren't we all
Aren't we
though?
all?
But Elton, I really look forward to seeing you.
Oh, I didn't know he listened to us.
He might.
You might.
Emily, what about you?
I watched Bright on Netflix. And I know it's very polarizing.
It is.
I was okay on it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm one of few people who was like, eh. It was,
Yeah.
It had good ideas, although I feel like most people are not going to realize it was it had to have been heavily influenced by Killing on Carnival Row. Which is a script that went around Hollywood a few years ago and is still one of the best spec scripts I've ever read. It's about a modern society that's got fairies and demons and stuff, and that's just part of life. Like there's fairy prostitutes, and it's currently being made into a TV series for Amazon, which I'm so stoked about. But it's gonna come out, and people are gonna be like, "This is like Bright." Nope, it was written before Bright. Anyway, but there's obvious influences. And so there's good ideas in Bright, I think. It's a really cool concept, although, again, it wasn't the first person to come up with that concept.
It was very skilled at squandering all its great ideas.
Exactly. And the character, just there's no chemistry. Like, I did not, there's a character who dies who I just don't give a shit about. There's an elf girl who we're supposed to like feel this great friendship with her and this orc guy. They don't give her any lines for half the movie. They don't give
her without purpose.
She has nothing to do in that movie for like the first 2/3 of it, and then suddenly it's like, oh, this girl that we all love so much. It's like, what? She didn't do or say anything.
And it also wasn't.
Because girls are just so cute when they're infantilized.
God. Yeah.
This also wasn't very smart about its issues. It was a cop movie with elves and fairies and orcs and things like that, and then it just totally like not subtle and not very nuanced.
Yeah. And it was all about the MacGuffin, and there was so much more world building that they could have done, and so many more avenues they could have explored. I mean, I know it was a feature, not a TV series, which is again why I look forward to Killing Carnival Row, exploring that further. But yeah, it squandered all its opportunities. It didn't really delve into the class system. You know,
or turn the cop movie on its head. Like,
Yeah.
it could have. Instead, it was just a cop movie that just so happened to have okay makeup.
Yeah, and there were bad cops.
I thought it was pretty good makeup. You don't even
Yeah.
take the dig at the makeup department on that one. I think they did a good job.
The makeup, I like the makeup and costumes, depending on the character, were either really good or really bad.
I just felt like it was a 2-hour waiting exercise, and like, will Will Smith pick up the wand? We know he's going to.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
clearly he's the bright. We get it.
Yeah.
Can you just pick it up now? No? Okay, I guess we can wait a little longer.
Yeah.
Kyle, what have you been doing?
Well,
Where have you been doing? Come
Where
on.
have you
How long
been
have you
doing?
been on the show?
I have been doing Sundance for the past 3 weeks, so I work there every year. And I saw 26 movies this year.
Oh, jeez.
Which is my
Is
record.
That's your record?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my record. So yeah, I've seen a bunch of really good stuff, a bunch of stuff that I was like, okay. And then a couple that I was not a fan of, which is usually how Sundance goes.
Yeah.
You know.
Sounds like a good ratio.
What was your stand-up?
So, top 3 to look out for are Bo Burnham wrote and directed his first film. It's called 8th Grade. It's about an 8th grade girl who does like these YouTube videos about like living your best life and being your best self, but then doesn't know how to apply it to her real life. So it's just about this awkward teen growing
She's an
up.
inspirational poster.
Yeah. It was really, really great. And then Hearts Beat Loud was the closing film for Sundance. It's with Nick Offerman and Kiersey Clemens, their father-daughter, who the daughter is about to go off to college to be a doctor, but they both are musicians, so they start making music together. And it was it kind of turned the father-daughter relationship on its head, because he's like, you're really good at music. Don't you want to stay here and make music instead of becoming a doctor? So it's kind of refreshing to see that angle instead of the opposite way around. And then I really liked I Think We're Alone Now with Peter Dinklage and Elle Fanning.
Oh, that's the one I've heard
It's
of.
post-apocalyptic. Peter Dinklage is like alone in this town, kind of content with being the only person in the town. And then Elle Fanning shows up and kind of ruins things for him. But then it's just I really love sci-fis that deal with human elements and relationships, and like you mentioned, Black Mirror, stuff like that, where it's sci-fi but it's dealing with very human things.
Right.
So those are my top 3.
Cool.
If we see that movie and they don't play the song, I think we're alone now. I'm gonna be upset.
They don't.
Fail.
Well, now you can prepare for it.
Yeah.
It's like, now
Yeah.
you know.
Come on.
To sit through the whole movie.
No,
like,
I was waiting for it too.
Just
and it-
call-
and
just mute the
and it
credits and
never
then play the
happened.
song.
Yeah,
or just stand up and sing loudly at the end of the movie.
No one wants me to do that.
yeah. Yeah, there's a musical number at the end. It's really great. Post credits, so you gotta stay.
Okay, we ready to talk Blade Runner?
Speaking of,
Yeah, of human
Science
emotions and
fiction.
science fiction.
Science
Oh my
and
gosh.
and what it means to be human.
yeah,
There's so much emoting.
there's so much emoting.
just silent. It's what Ryan Gosling does, man.
I mean, Ryan Gosling could just come here and stand in our living room and emote, and I'll be like, "This is the best show ever."
Oh, hey, here's a cool idea. His face acting and Tom Hardy's eye acting.
oh my god,
Just directed at you
Oh my
completely?
God. John, oh my god, that's just genius.
They're the new silent film stars of our day.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but that is what's amazing. I mean, that's my first thing I said when I was watching this movie is like, how does Ryan Gosling manage to he manages to play stoicism filled with emotion? Like, that's not a thing. But he's like the only actor I can think of who's so good at being able to do that.
I agree that he's playing it very quiet, but like we should consider how much of it is the Eisenstein effect, that like we are projecting what we think he's feeling onto like a blank canvas essentially by like what the association is with his face. And that if he's maintaining a neutral expression and we're very impressed by that, maybe we're just reading into what we feel his
That's a possibility.
emotions
I think he's just a
are
good
in
actor.
this
I
moment.
We're going to need to pause really
Oh.
quick so we can do a 30-second breakdown.
Oh yeah, we skipping over that. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
I know, this movie's really easy just to dive in, but I'm just going to interrupt everything, bring the whole
Yeah.
podcast to a complete stop, and do a 30-second breakdown. Kyle, you're up this week for this.
Oh boy.
Are you excited? I mean, I know you emailed me that no, I'm not excited.
I mean, it's a 3 hour. It's like a 3 hour movie broken down into 30 seconds. So it's like 5 to 6 minutes per second that I have to do here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll do fine.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so Blade Runner 2049 in 30 seconds. Here we go, 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 go!
Kay is a replicant and a Blade Runner. If you don't know what those things are, you shouldn't watch this movie. Kay is searching for the miracle child of another replicant, and in doing so, starts to think it's him. Kay finds Deckard, a former Blade Runner from the first movie, and father to this miracle child. The company who makes replicants abducts Deckard, destroys Kay's augmented reality girlfriend, and leaves Kay for dead. Kay finds out he's not the miracle child, saves Deckard, and unites him with his daughter.
Damn, that was well
Someone
done.
prepared.
There you go.
You got the whole plot in there.
Yeah.
I love to insult people when they fail, but you extraordinarily didn't, so we can just move right along. So that didn't happen.
You're supposed to
That-
make fun of Brian for a second.
Yeah.
That would not have happened if I didn't read that off my phone and actually break it down.
Earlier this morning, I was trying to do it to CHEWIE, and she said I got close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, well, yeah, I guess 3 hours and 30 seconds is a little tough. I bet I can do it. And
Yeah.
I tried a couple times. Mine did not go that well.
There's a lot in there.
I kind of forgot the name of the company. And I just kept saying not Whale and Yutani.
Wallace. Yeah.
But you lost time on that because it's longer.
I did, yeah. But it's better than what would not Tyrell. Fuck.
Yeah.
So we were talking Ryan Gosling before I rudely interrupted everybody.
That's fine.
That's okay.
What I was gonna say is the first time I noticed Ryan Gosling, like really actually noticed him, because before he was an actor that everyone said was pretty good and was really attractive, and I never really felt that attraction to him. And then I saw him in Drive, and that movie is very much him emoting the whole time. And it really
you weren't a fan of him in the Mickey Mouse Club?
No, actually, the only thing that would ever come to my mind that I was a fan of him in was Young Hercules. And
Okay.
apparently no one else watched that.
Nope. Not a lot of people watch the original Hercules.
I loved the original.
I like.
I mean, I liked it too, but
But so I guess I have that emotional attachment to him in a way because he blew me away in Drive because I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know what to expect. And I became very attached to his face for lack of a better way to describe it.
You grew accustomed to his face.
You're accustomed to his face. So, yes. So when I watched this movie, he is kind of recycling some of those facial expressions, but for me, it still worked.
I think that's why he was a good pick for this character. I mean, he can do that, and not every actor can.
We need the face guy. Can you bring him in?
But to Ray's point with the whole Einstein effect, is it possible that he's using that to his benefit? Like, is it possible that he knows what he's doing? Like, oh, if I just go blank face here and everything else is going on around me,
but my eyes look so sincere and they're getting filled with water.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a certain amount of that is requested by him being a replicant, because, you know, for example, when his flying car crashes in, I think the ruins of San Diego, he does a noticeable amount of not freaking out, because he's an android.
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to. Other androids do show more emotional reaction than him, I think, but it makes perfect sense that, you know, in like an emergency situation, he would look up and, you know, put his seatbelt on and, you know, secure the car for a crash landing in which he nearly dies, but, like, you know, not hyperventilate or do any sort of very human biological reaction to it. So, you know, his deadpanness is called for by the character, but I do think that we might be reading a little into it.
Well, I don't think so. I think he's just a really good actor who knows what he's doing.
But I mean, there is a possibility. I mean, he's not nominated. I mean, I thought he was phenomenal in this movie. He's not nominated.
Yeah.
When we went through his nomination list, I was just like, that's what he's been nominated for?
Yeah, the ones he got.
It was the Nelson movie.
Half Nelson.
And I forgot the other one.
La La Land.
La La Land. I'm like, those are the two movies.
Yeah.
All the movies in his repertoire that
Really
are
La La
better.
Land.
I mean, he was.
It's all the ones where he's goofy. Apparently,
Yeah.
people want to see that
I
from
don't
him
wanna see
instead.
that.
Oh, I'm fine with
Yeah.
Goofy. He was so good in the one
Nice
with Russell
Guys.
Crowe. Yeah,
Nice Guys,
he was
yeah.
phenomenal.
Oh, that's
in
right.
this.
He
yeah.
was fucking great in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's a really good actor.
He is a really good actor.
Yeah, I loved him in a little movie called Lars and the Real Girl,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I have not seen that yet.
which is kind of funny because it kind of happens. That sort of thing happens in this movie too,
It's
where
one of
get
Lars the Real
there.
2.0.
he doesn't have a real girlfriend,
he's
but he's very
also
much
very
in
deadpan.
love with this
Yeah.
not real girlfriend.
He's used to acting with that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, at least this one he had an actual actress on set with him.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like talk to the doll.
What is her name again?
The actresses?
Yeah.
Anna de Armas.
Anna de Armas. It was funny because yesterday I was like, I can never remember her name. I just think of her as a combination of Scarlett Johansson and Clara from Doctor Who.
Yep.
Oh, she's very Clara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Brian's just like, you just described the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yeah, just describe a combination of gorgeous. But yeah, more about like Ryan's this movie. I really like that. Speaking a little bit to like the marketing of the film and like the way they just kind of throw you into the movie right away. Throughout the entire marketing of the movie, they never said that Ryan was an android.
No.
You could kind of guess if you were really paying attention, but I know I don't try to watch trailers. I think I only watched half of the first one.
Yeah, I might have watched the first one once.
Yeah,
The
I
first teaser.
I was trying to stay as clear-headed as I could because I really love the director and I love Blade Runner, so I was like, all right, I really want to know as little as possible. But from what I understand, people who are even like in the hype train with this thing, they still didn't know he was an android. And I like that they don't treat it as a reveal in the movie either. Like, it's just a good way to like kind of hide it in the trailers. But as soon as the movie starts, that first fight with Dave Bautista, it's like, oh, he's an android, or he'd be dead right now.
That's kind of how like I was going in. I saw maybe one of the trailers, didn't really pay much attention. I was like, who did they cast as the android in this Blade Runner movie? Because clearly the main character is going to be an android. And then the movie is like, I got you one. And then they're like, maybe he's real. I'm like, whoa!
Wait,
they kind of like, I bet you didn't get that.
so are replicants actually androids?
Yes. Replicant was a name made up for the original movie. In Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, they are referred to as androids or Andes, which I think legend has it Ridley Scott did not like and found it a little like casual or something. And also wanted a term that people had not heard before for the original. And so replicants is a neologism that exists solely for Blade Runner.
Yeah, I always wondered whether or not there was some version of clones, honestly.
Yeah,
For a
that
long time.
makes a little more
Because
sense
they never really
in a
seem
way.
to have any mechanical parts.
They are very
They're-
squishy, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're not quite as mechanical as, say, like the androids in like the Alien franchise, but they still like the way that they've described them throughout the both films. It's like they're definitely robotic people. Like they're not like they don't have robotics. So like they're grown organic, but they're still not like human.
Yeah, they're still not-
Programmed.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like-
still programmed.
Yeah, it's
But
like
they might be more
nowadays
human than human.
they're trying to create organs. So this is essentially they've created an entire human in that respect.
Yeah. They don't. I like that they both kind of answer it and not answer it at the same time. Like they say that Rachel was definitely an android, but she still has a skeleton, and it's like so they kind of do both. It's like yeah, they kind of are, but they're kind of not. And instead of dwelling on it, we're just going to try to move on with the
Yeah.
story. And I like that they do that.
That's one thing that I really appreciate about this movie and the first movie. I did not see the first movie until 3 years ago.
Yeah, if
It was
that.
one of the ones that I was always told the entire time of my existence, you will love this movie no matter what. This movie is made for you. So then I always kind of avoided it.
Yeah, that can really put people off.
Yeah.
If
And
you're
I,
like, this movie is so classic, and oh my god, I can't believe you haven't seen it. I think the
Yeah.
more that you hear that, the less you actually.
And especially when it
to
gets
see that
personal, it's like this is the most classic movie ever, and it was made for you.
That's
Ray.
yeah.
You will love this movie.
When
Yeah.
someone says this is tailor made for you, I'm like, challenge accepted.
so
Well, I hate it now.
I had that aversion to it, and I also wanted to make sure I saw it more than just on a television in a living room. So we went to a film screening of it, I believe.
The
where it's
Arrow
called- yeah,
in whatever city that's in. Santa Monica, maybe?
someplace close.
Yeah.
And I did end up loving it, but not in the same way that everybody else did, I guess. Because I thought Deckard was kind of an ass. He clearly kind of raped Rachel.
Yep.
And I was just like, why is everyone romanticizing this so much? I mean, I really enjoyed this movie, but there's ways some people got kind of weird with the way they romanticized it. So then when I got to see this movie, I mean, everything worked for me because I still had that association and be like, okay, these are kind of shitty people in a shitty world where they do shitty things to women. So I just accepted it. I know you, Ray, had a lot of issues with it. So I want to talk about that in depth if we can between all of us, especially with Kyle and Brian. And
We
all
have
that.
3 women at the table today.
Yeah, with 3 women.
And we also need to make sure we talk
And
about
3 men. We're
Say-
equal right now.
Whoa!
Equal rights. It's happening.
Even numbers.
Sexism is over.
Sexism is not
We
over.
solved it, guys, right here, right now.
This is a momentous occasion.
Because it's just so interesting to look at the world of Blade Runner and be like, this is definitely based off of our world, but it's not our world. This is not our future. And it's just like, what all did they intend to be as sexist as it looks, or what was accidental sexism? And it's like, to me, that's what really intrigues me about these films.
Well, the world itself, I love. Like, I love the whole, like, somewhat Asian world that we have. Because it was the movie, the first one came out in a time when everyone thought, oh, in 20 years from now, we all need to learn Japanese because that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And, like, everything will be Asian. So that's how they made their future. And then instead of correcting it to kind of how it turned out, they just stuck to that and made it that future in this one. And I really like that. But as far as, like, the gender roles, I honestly don't feel like I have much to add to it. Because I know a lot of people saw that there was a lot to talk about with it, and for me, I wasn't paying attention to that part of the film, which is my own fault. I've seen it now 3 times, and like each time, like that's not the thing that sticks out to me. But so somebody else who has something more about that.
Yeah, a lot of something about that. A lot of people give the first movie shit because they think that Edward James Olmos's character is a Hispanic man playing a Japanese man.
Right.
But it's really, it's kind of a beautiful thing. It's like he's this amalgamation of all these different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And even like the weird, he speaks a weird language in the first film. That's like I think it's a combination of English, German, and Japanese.
So it's very like Firefly Serenity stuff.
Yeah, so it's actually, like on the surface it can seem a little like, oh, that's not right. But when you like really look at it, it's kind of this beautiful thing because it's a merging of all these cultures.
I would also like to point out, I feel like I don't know how much you want to talk about the original today and here, but
Whatever comes up.
the world in Blade Runner, the original 2019, and in 2049 have a lot of noticeable differences.
Yeah.
And in lots of ways in ethnic composition, in the production design and how they're portrayed. And so it's a little bit incorrect to speak of the world of Blade Runner. I think at this point we have to specify like which movie we're referring to or which director's vision, because there were things that you said that I think are true for 2019 but are not true for 2049.
Okay.
For example, the prevalence of Asian culture. In 2019, there's lots of Asian background. There's lots of Asian signage. Asian languages are not the only language that's spoken.
Right.
There's a gang of kids that are speaking German, or
Okay,
it could
yeah.
actually be city speak, which Kyle, you pointed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and this is another huge big issue, but in 2049 there are no Asian people.
Yeah.
There's Asian signage. There you hear Asian languages spoken. I believe it's mostly Korean and Japanese. There are Asian women in the advertisements, but there is literally not a single Asian human in that whole movie.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
In
And
my
that's super
in my
weird.
rationalizing brain, I came up with a theory. Maybe all the Asians went fuck this and went
Yeah.
to the colonies. And you guys can
That's
stay
something
there.
that
Right, they all just-
2049 explains much clearer than the first one, in that basically all the like healthy people have left Earth.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, who is all this Korean and Japanese signage for?
Well,
Who's reading
Cultural
it?
appropriation, man.
I think it's a little bit of that, and I think it's a little bit of just stuff that left over. Because the 2049 world, I think they mention it a lot, but I don't think they personally. This is my after watching it now a few times. I think it's my biggest sticking point with it. I don't think they do enough really letting us know the world was entirely restarted. Like that blackout, they mentioned it's like, oh yeah, no things happened in the blackout. But if you watch like the short film where it happened, the whole world shuts down.
Yeah.
Like it's a complete blackout, not just in LA, it's the whole world, and they have to rebuild. It's not like, oh, we need to turn the lights back on. So the entire world had the reset button hit. So like everyone had to start over. So I think there's a lot.
And then they started over and all the Asians were on.
Well,
Not
yeah.
just Asians.
They just turned off the
There
lights
are
and like ran
also-
for it.
There are also very few black people.
Yeah.
And
There's only two.
Lenny James,
think.
who's
Yeah.
a very bad person.
Yeah.
two speaking roles. They're both kind of like not great people.
Yeah.
Almost no black minor roles or background that I saw, and no Hispanic people.
It
either.
is really
Edward
it
James
is a
almost,
very
but yeah.
odd choice.
It's what so did all of the people of color manage to make it to the off-world colonies.
It's an odd.
I know
It's a white
they-
genocide, guys.
They shot this in Eastern Europe, right?
In Hungary,
Yeah.
So I know that was one of the excuses they gave, is
Still,
that there just
you can
wasn't
make an
any for
effort.
casting. Yeah. So I know we can rationalize it as much as we want, but it is kind of weird.
It doesn't hold up to any like follow-up questions. Any
Yeah.
of the
No.
I was talking even to a production designer weirdly about this issue, and their excuse was, well, I don't think it's supposed to be Los Angeles. It's really supposed to be Los Angeles.
No, it's definitely Los Angeles.
Supposed to be Los
Say it
Angeles.
is crawl.
So
Explicitly,
hard.
explicitly.
They make it very
Yeah.
clear that it's Los Angeles.
And that's a reminder to any burgeoning filmmakers out there: make a fucking effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry you shot in Hungary, but they did that to control costs. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, totally.
So it's a trade-off. If you saved all this money on labor by shooting in Budapest, then you gain money by flying out 100 Asian background. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's not like there's 0 Asian people in Europe.
And
That's
if,
true.
if
Yeah.
anything, with all the things going on in Syria and the Arab nations, there's a lot of refugees that could maybe use some extra work or something.
Right.
like-
It's the world of Blade Runner 2049 is actually, and not just in its lack of ethnic diversity, shockingly not post-humanist. I went back and rewatched the original, and the original has just more people with shit bolted to their faces.
Yeah.
They're the world of Blade Runner 2049 almost has like the Star Trek alien problem where everyone's just like a biped with like a funny nose or a funny ear.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
There's everybody in Blade Runner 2049 is just like a human. People don't even have funny hair anymore. Did we just lose our appetite for like biohacking or body modification?
Honestly, I'd say yes.
There's
The,
no
the world
glitter
shut
lady.
down. So all those body modifications shut down. So would you want to do that again if that could ever happen again? So say that you like you got electronic eyes. Oh, if the world shuts down, I lose eyesight.
Right.
So I think them losing that stuff, that kind of makes sense.
Also, fashion.
Yeah, and
that's
fashion
part of
changes.
fashion.
Yeah.
It changes
Yeah.
over time, so it's reasonable to think it wouldn't be exactly the same.
But I think the reliant on putting electronics in your body would change after, those all shut down when the world died.
It's possible. But the conception of like what a person looks like
Yeah.
has not changed.
Sure.
I feel like the original made an effort to imagine what people would look like in the future. 2049 didn't, which is strange for a very futuristic movie, that they didn't imagine like maybe people have stopped wearing their clothes in this way. Maybe people have emphasized different parts of their bodies.
Well, like in the movie Her, where like the fashion sense, we're guessing kind of like a more streamlined sense of fashion, and it kind of feels different because like, well, this would naturally go this direction. This felt like today. Their
Yeah.
fashion
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, everyone was just wearing Gareth Pugh, and that's
It felt more like The Matrix in my mind, of like what everyone
Sure.
in the late '90s thought the future was going to look like.
While we're talking about fashion, can we bring up the coat,
Yeah.
guys?
Which coat?
Which coat do you think?
Ryan Gosling's eyes.
For some
That's the
reason,
coat we're talking
I'm still
about.
always attracted to that. Just the idea of plastic as clothing with that that plastic yellow jacket.
No,
Okay, well, that's not even a real coat. She just made that up.
Yeah,
it's a
whatever.
digital
But
coat.
they had that in the original too with the
That's
girl
true.
when she
Yeah.
put on
True.
that
Yeah.
clear one.
no,
Oh.
Ryan Gosling's coat. I just want to give a shout out to how amazing that coat is.
It's a nice coat.
Yeah.
a very
So
nice
when he
coat.
like flips up the collar and he puts it over his face and he's just like walking through the ashy snow.
There was a few moments when he had that collar up and walking around that it felt very anime-esque, and I was like,
So
oh,
cool.
okay, like I was kind
Oh.
of attuned to that.
There's a lot of anime-esque things throughout this entire movie. And
Totally.
it even makes sense when the first short film they commissioned was an anime.
Yeah.
Like, it just, clearly Denny loves anime. But I think that's kind of
But
cool.
not Asian people
But not-
in it, I guess.
That's a
right. Well, and
Oops.
another thing that, speaking of fashion, that was missing from 2049 was the original is known for its use of retrofuturism. It is very much an 80s does 40s with elements of Mayan design and ancient Japanese design, and I felt weirdly like much of that was missing from 2049 design-wise. It's not retrofuturistic, it's just futuristic. And that is the Blade Runner look in many people's minds. That's what captured everyone's imagination, was this beautiful combination between 40s detective noir and what the 80s anyway imagined the future would look like. And 2049 just kind of left all that behind. You could...
I'm glad you said that, actually, because I was trying to pinpoint what was bothering me about that, because it had a lot of shots that were very similar to the previous movie, like slow trailing shots. The music was right. These elements all kind of lined up right, but then there was something off. And now that you mentioned that,
I
like
think
that was I think that bugged me probably more.
I noticed it mostly in the hair. more
I
than-
noticed it in the hair, but this is still years, decades later.
Yeah,
Like, that
yeah,
doesn't really bother me. I understand, like, the point of view. I get
Yeah.
it. But for me, it's just like, my hair looks totally different than it did 20 years. Granted, I was a
Yeah.
kid then,
I
but
would've
still.
I would have liked them have changed it to maybe a different decade.
Sure, yeah.
inspired.
They could have made
'Cause
a
they
more
did-
bold choice for sure, but it doesn't bother me that it doesn't look the same as the first
They just
one.
didn't choose anything specific like the original did.
Yeah.
I would agree, because that's actually a pretty good point. I love the fashion in this movie. I kept I'm obsessed with fashion, and I kept just going, "Oh, look at that, look at that." But it was because everything that was presented was
You'd
something
wear
I
now.
want to
Yeah.
wear exactly now.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. It's beautiful fashion, but it's not particularly of a certain time.
No.
And you could, saying, of course, that this is post-blackout and, 30 years on from the
Yeah.
original, maybe their nostalgia reference point has also moved forward. If in the 80s or imaginary 2019, they were hearkening back to the 40s, maybe it's moved forward, and now in 2049, they're making all of these 90s references
Yeah.
or 2000s references in their clothes.
Maybe 90s by way of like 50s, because you're coming up on the 50s of the 2000s.
Right.
So
And,
there could be that weird fusion of like.
I would think that it would be like they were harkening the 90s.
Yeah.
there was just very little, there was almost no feeling of the retrofuturism that the original had, which is, I think, what, gave Blade Runner its particular character, especially in comparison to the 80s, the other 80s futuristic movies of the time. And now it's just a futuristic movie, which
Yeah.
is good, but it lost a little bit of that special flavor that it had.
No, totally. Yeah, there's a bit of distinctness that is not there anymore. I can totally
Kyle
see that.
I
hasn't
think
said
Yeah.
I think I definitely wasn't bothered as much by these things as you guys were. The one costume that did stand out to me that was extremely lacking was when Harrison Ford
Oh my
shows up,
God.
because
a t-shirt.
it kind of just looks like he showed up on set and they're like, "Here's your costume, Mr. Ford," and he was like, "No, I'm wearing this." It's like, okay, all right, which like it works in the sense that he's like completely shut himself off.
He never sees anyone all day.
so
We're
he
lucky
doesn't
he was
really-
wearing a shirt.
He literally doesn't care. Like his dog
I get that
doesn't care
feeling
what he
from
wears.
him in every movie now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like from Ender's Game to Star Wars to this, I'm just like,
We got him on set.
Yeah. We got him set. He's agreed to say his lines, guys. We're good. We've got a movie.
I mean, back when I did costumes years and years ago, there were actors who dictated to you what they would wear and refused to wear anything else, and that may very well be the case.
It would not surprise me at all.
yeah.
What do you guys think of Harrison Ford in this?
He was good. I mean, he wasn't amazing.
He was the way he always is.
Yeah.
I didn't. Sorry, go ahead.
I thought it was his best performance in a while.
I think it's his best of his I've been calling them his legacy performances,
Yeah.
where he takes the roles that made him famous and he's doing them again.
Yeah.
I think it's the best of those because we have
Yeah.
we had the Indiana Jones and then Han
Star
Solo
Wars.
and now this, and it's like out of those three, like Indiana Jones, he sleptwalked through that whole fucking movie.
No, he did not give a shit.
Star Wars, I felt like he was there, but it just. I'm not sure if the character wasn't written the same, but it just didn't feel right to me. And this one, it feels more like Deckard, but it still felt like it felt to me like Harrison Ford was playing a different role. Like it didn't feel like Deckard to me, and I don't know why. Like,
He's lived a whole life since then.
Totally,
And-
yeah.
And
Yeah.
his response when being reminded about Rachel was like his face was so sad.
See, I would kind of disagree that I would believe it based off the ending of Blade Runner, the previous one.
Sure,
After his
yeah.
encounter and that final speech up in the rain, that's Deckard that made it to this movie. And I saw
Yeah.
that, and I think to what you said about this being his best legacy one, that's why I would agree.
Yeah.
Is because he played the later Deckard, like the years on Deckard, the worn down one.
I've
seen
liked-
some shit.
The one who'd seen losing her.
Yeah.
I think.
I would have liked him to have been a little bit more unstable.
Yeah,
He's been living in this radioactive wasteland of Las Vegas by himself for 20 plus
he
years.
has a dog and a hologram Elvis to hang out with.
Also,
He is essentially Fallout 4, right?
They talk about how the concentration of radioactivity is the highest in this location, and he looks perfectly healthy. Like
Replica.
that. Okay.
Yeah, hard
They
to argue
never
with that.
establish whether or not he's a replicant.
They
and
don't.
even if you're a replicant, you're still mostly organic, which would react to it somehow.
Oh
I
my!
imagine.
Now, I'm not a huge fan of Jared Leto in this movie, but he does have not my favorite line. I didn't use it for the quote, but that moment he's like, "So you were designed to do this." I'm like, holy shit! They're actually saying he's a replica, and then he just at the end is like, "If you were designed." It's like,
Yeah.
Interpret that to mean not you were designed, but that I designed this moment for you to do this thing.
Right? Yeah.
As in, you were designed as in you were planned to go here and do this thing.
Yeah.
I actually believe that the original, and if we're going to get into the whole replicant thing, the original and this movie have different perspectives on whether or not Deckard is a replicant.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't think that there's like a consensus between
No.
the two movies.
The director
Ridley-
and Han Solo, they were documented as having a very angry fight, weren't they?
Who?
About
Han Solo.
Han Solo.
sorry, Harrison Ford. Was it Harrison
Han
Ford or was it Ridley
Solo.
Scott? The director Denny had a fight with somebody about
Oh,
whether or not
he and Ridley Scott did not
Ridley
get along
Scott.
very well.
yeah.
And Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott have been documented as having different opinions on
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
topic.
Nobody
the three
agrees.
of them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
none one can decide whether or not he actually is a replicant. So,
But I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's appropriate that we aren't, because I don't even know if Philip K. Dick had an opinion. So I think that's actually the right choice. That
totally
it's
audience
up for
control.
discussion.
I love when
Plus
movies do that.
the themes of Blade Runner is what does it mean to be human. So the fact that we don't even know if this main character is human or not, I think is the right choice.
Well, it's interesting, kind of per what we've been saying, that it's more ambiguous as to if he's a replicant or not, But with everyone in this movie, the 2049 replicants, it's you just know that practically no one's real, and it's easier to tell.
Yeah.
It's almost interesting that it kind of ties in with the way that like a lot of that has been shaved, like all the kind of uniqueness has been shaved off to make ambiguousness impossible, except for Harrison Ford's character.
Yeah, on the Script Notes podcast, if anybody ever listens to that, it's a great podcast. You should listen to it. Craig Mazin talked about this, and he's like, the thing that he loved about this movie is that this movie boldly says, "Who gives a shit if he's a replica?" And they said it, and he said that moment was solidified for him at the when Ryan Gosling and him were talking. He's like, "Oh, you have a dog? Is it real?" He's like, "I don't know. Ask him." And like this is the best. Like, we're not giving a fuck about this conversation
Also,
anymore.
they didn't give a fuck about the dog because they left it there in Las Vegas by itself, and that makes me upset.
Yeah.
Well,
he
a lot of
still has
shit happened.
Elvis. He's fine.
He's got a whole lot of whiskey.
He's got to climb a shelf, knock it down. He's good to go.
Humans, I used to know them.
But the one discussion Brian and I got into kind of last night, which honestly felt almost like a little bit of an awkward discussion to have between a married couple.
I didn't
From
know that's
this-
awkward.
I felt a little weird discussing it, but when we were talking about joy, like, what is love, guys? Is love a choice, or is it always a programming in some sense? Because like in our lives, we're like soulmates and things. We're like, is soulmates the idea of a programmed love, or are you always choosing who you loved? Was joy genuine? Like, do you think she actually loved him, or was it all programming?
Ooh, let's go around the table. I say yes. Ray, how'd you feel?
You mean guess which?
Do you think that she was genuine in love or programmed love?
No, but you just said yes. What was
I
your
think
answer?
yes, she genuinely loved him.
No, I think that she is an AI designed to tell. The movie explicitly says several times everything you want to hear.
Yep.
She is the one who tells Kay that he is the robot messiah. She even believes it more than he does.
Yeah.
And she's telling him everything he wants to hear. I think that she is an AI designed to become the waifu that he wants.
Yeah.
And to know that. I don't think that she gains sentience.
That's where I disagree, but I'll let John go first.
I pretty much agree with what you say about it. Just that's my outlook on things. Like, yep, she's programmed, and especially when he sees that advertisement. You're a
And
right.
she calls him Joe.
You're a right, Joe, and I'm like, yeah, that was all fake.
And I'm not saying that these are my feelings on love or
Yeah. No,
human feelings or whether or not soulmates exist. I'm saying based on the clues given in the movie, that's what
Just
it's-
because my reaction is I wanted that to be true. I wanted because I was trying to she does. She like it's real. Like my mind wanted that to happen, and then that line happening. And I was like, but it's a AI. It's a routine. Like I had to pull back, and that's what made me think and solidify for me that wasn't real.
True. You say no. I know you say no.
I say no to love being programmed.
Right.
I think love is always a choice. In a way.
Sure.
Like, it's more deep than that, but if I have to
Yeah.
choose between the two, I'm going to go with choice.
But do you believe that for yourself, or is the movie saying that?
So I'm conflicted, honestly, because I look at Joy and I'm like, she's clearly is programmed to tell people what they want to hear.
Oh yeah. Look the way they
But
want to look. Dance the way they want to dance.
There are steps that she takes that feel a little bit beyond that at times. And so then I'm like, well, if she's a really good AI and she's supposed to be able to evolve to his needs, like even the greatest fear in AIs today is when you give them the program to evolve, can they evolve to their own needs, like their own agency? So then you're like, okay, so she was told to do what he wanted and to love him, but then does she end up choosing to really actually love him?
I'll let the table finish. Emily, where do you land on it?
I do agree with CHEWIE in principle that love is a choice. However, in this movie, I think she was programmed to love him, but I also think it's very real for her. So whether she's, again, the same question of, are they human? Are they not human? Who cares? Was she programmed to love, or does she just naturally love him? I don't know. Who cares? I mean, she loves him for whatever source that comes from.
That's 100% where I land. But
but I also think,
go
I want to say one more thing. I also think she's the only kind of girlfriend he could have.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
Can you imagine being a normal human woman in a relationship with that dude? He would
is surrounded
never
by,
last.
He is surrounded by everyone that he works with or is around him doesn't like him. Like the people in his building just call him a Skinner. His boss just views him as a tool.
But he
I think
also
his-
I
his
think
boss
he would
likes
do all
it.
right with a human girlfriend with a face like that.
He
Yeah.
just,
I don't
well, yeah, for a while. But can you imagine trying to get him to tell you that he loves you, or like, hey, you know, like just getting any kind of emotional response from him, or getting what you need from him? It just wouldn't
Just
happen.
because the baseline that they seem to say that he needs to hold emotionally for his job, I don't think he is really capable of having a real relationship.
No, totally.
Except she like her talking about how he's the one when he thinks he is a human, that changed. Like he was very emotive and
yeah.
Which is
Oh,
a
he
whole
was
conversation.
losing it.
Yeah.
His face got all
Yeah.
twitchy.
but like
That goes to the whole programming question.
Yeah,
Like
but
suddenly,
one more person needs to answer this
Oh, yeah.
question.
Also, his madam definitely wants to get it on with.
Oh, that's
absolutely.
obvious.
Like, I mean, there's a line where she's like, "What happens if I finish this bottle?" So she's like, "If I get drunk, are we doing this?" And he's like, "I should go to work." So I think Joy is programmed to love him, but I think Kay genuinely loves her, which Kay is also, or not, is a robot. So there's. That's the great thing about it. There's conflicting arguments there whether a robot can genuinely love, this.
When AI in general, whether or not it's a robot
Yeah.
or a hologram, like, are they capable of evolving to genuine emotion?
do androids dream of electric sheep?
Ah,
no sheep in this movie.
Bummer.
There's a goat mentioned.
Yes, there is. There's an
there's-
origami sheep.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
For me, the defining moment of why I think that she is not necessarily sentient, but like where it actually, whether or not it's program loved or real love, it's still, as Emily said, still real to her. Therefore, it still is a real version of love. Is when she snaps the antenna and she's entirely on her own. She's no longer getting updates. She's no longer any. She is just what she is. So like she is her programming. That's true. But she has her own thing at that point. She's no longer. But
Is she just following the second law of robotics when she does that?
it's possible, yes.
Because she removes herself from the home console in order to not leave a trace when Kay essentially goes on the run. Pardon me. I'm assuming that the makers of this movie are aware of Asimov's laws of robotics.
I would assume so, or
Right.
at least hope so.
So the second one of which is a robot cannot, through an action, cause harm to come to a human being. If Joy were to leave herself to act in self-preservation and leave herself programmed onto the console, then she would be opening Kay up to harm. Kay, whether or not he's a human or a replicant, is her master in like robot terms. And so through an action, she would cause Kay to come to harm. She has to, I presume, obey that second law of robotics. And even if in her mind she's doing what she feels, she is actually obeying a robotics law that's programmed into her when she does that.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense, but I don't think that negates the love aspect of it. Like I think that
She feels.
yeah.
There's in the original iRobot, there's a story about robots inventing this weird ass religion that keeps them like maintaining a space station
Right.
and locking humans out of it. They think that they're inventing, pardon me, they think that they're having feelings. They think that they're having religion. They're actually just obeying the second law.
When do they start rapping with Will Smith?
I think there is that one little scene where she and Mackenzie Davis become one, and to have so that she can give him a sexual experience, which is kind of her, but also I think that's for her as well.
Yeah.
And then the next morning or whatever, is it morning? I don't know. Whenever she comes back in and Mackenzie Davis is still there, and she's just like, "I'm done with you," and it's very dismissive. It's almost like she's jealous and upset that she doesn't get to have this experience more often. There is a very human reaction to that would indicate that there are feelings involved and it's not just about her programming.
It really feels like Wallace set up these basically love robot hologram things to have a real shitty life.
Yeah, yeah. Just like being a sex slave, man.
Yeah.
other than the special effects for that scene, I couldn't get invested in it because I was so annoyed at how much it reminded me of her.
Yeah, it is. It's far too similar of a scene. with too few years between it, it just can't make you think of anything but that.
For some reason, because of how well it was executed, it still doesn't bother me. But I think you're both spot on. Like it is,
I just
it's
couldn't
very
get into
samey.
it.
What haven't we hit in this movie? We've been talking for a while, and there's so
We haven't
much to
talked
talk
about love, really, and
Oh, we
we
should
haven't
talk
talked about
Robin.
Well, we've talked
The-
about
the fa- we-
love,
We-
but
not
not the character
we
love.
haven't
We
really,
haven't-
because there's been a lot of criticism of this movie in the feminist angle, and I think it's too much. I don't agree with it, but
well, the weird thing is that there's a lot of all the women in this movie.
there's a lot of women in this movie.
are kind of servants, except for Robin's character. She's the boss of the LAPD.
But then she also has very masculine presentation too. It's like there's a
Yeah.
weird sense of
Yeah,
There's
they're
also-
all servants in some way, but there's more women speaking roles in this movie than most.
And the women are, I mean, there's two women in this movie who are fucking badass.
There are a bunch of women speaking roles, but there's weirdly not a lot of women like out in the world. If you look at the crowd scenes, the background, there's almost no female cops, which is super weird.
Was it in the first one?
And the only women out in the world was the one Hungarian lady in the stairwell, and then the rest of them were prostitutes.
Yeah.
Right, like
oh yeah.
RoboCop has female police officers. Are we saying that 2049 is like less progressive than RoboCop? Because that's a bummer.
It's really
honestly,
it would be.
I think it is, and I think it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah,
And
I don't
like,
consider this a progressive world
no.
at all.
Yeah.
I don't. So there's some questions that a movie leaves open-ended that are good, like the question of whether or not Deckard is a replicant, or the question of whether or not the memory maker is like half replicant or full replicant, or like what that means. And then there's some questions that a movie leaves open that I think show maybe not a fully fleshed out world behind it. And I think that's one of them. Like, why are there not a whole lot of women just wandering around this world? And what happened to all the people of color?
I don't think. Well, what happened to all the people of color is a very good question. I don't think it's a good. I mean, I don't think it's a. What was I about to finish that sentence? Anyway, I think. Oh, I don't think it's a coincidence that we see the love slave aspect. We see prostitutes and we see images of your mechanical wife. And then when Jared Leto, when that replicant like naked falls, it's a woman, and then he just fucking brutally stabs her in the womb, I believe, even.
Yeah.
Well, he's
Yeah.
trying to create a fertile replicant,
Yeah,
and
but-
then murders her by gutting her.
Well, that's where I'm getting at. I think this is definitely a world where women are servants, where women are. I don't think that's the movie saying that's a good thing. I think that's this brutal world where you're a womb, or you're sex, or you're Robin Wright Penn is probably an exception in this world in her ability to rise to the top, which is probably why we don't see a lot of other
And
female.
I think that's entirely true, especially with Robin Wright, because it's the way that she's risen to the
that's
top
right. She's
is
not Robin Wright Penn anymore.
yeah,
right?
no. But she's dressed like a man. She talks like a man. She walks like a man. Like, she is fucking tough.
yeah,
Like,
even
so-
if her hair is just slicked back, not
Yeah.
feminine at
Dude,
all.
her expression when that other chick like crushed her hand around the glass and she's just like, "This is fine."
I love that scene. Like,
I
that,
have a fun question.
shoot.
What happened to all of the dicks in the world?
Oh.
Like, why?
Vegas went very hetero male and very
Yeah.
hetero male only.
Yeah.
If this is, and I feel like this is one of the questions that the movie leaves open-ended that I don't think it like has like a good like kind of backing to. What happened to all of the male sexual objectification in the world?
Was there that in the first? I've only seen the first movie twice. at
There
this point,
was
so I don't-
not, if I recall correctly. And I'm not saying that like excuses it because
No,
we-
I just didn't know if I missed it.
No, I don't believe we see any male sex workers or strippers or prostitutes in the first movie. But like, are we just pretending like,
Gay people don't exist.
Thunder from Down Under went away somehow?
what I take this world as, and how I've from the very first time I watched it, because I think I saw you put something to that effect on Facebook when I first saw it. I'm like, that was one of the ones that like I just don't see it, because I look at this world as if Mitch McConnell became king of America, like just like the worst possible person who could be running the country would outlaw anything that he'd find offensive, and seeing male prostitutes, no, men can't, no, would be his response. And that's kind of how I took this world. Is the worst people have won, and now they're running society.
If that's the case, though, why is there female prostitution and why are there sexualized women in ads?
Well, that's where I'm saying the worst people. The people who would be okay with that sort of thing are the ones who are in charge now, because it's just
Women
rampant
are
everywhere.
for sex.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's
We're either sex or
think
women's.
of the worst people as being, universally hetero, but in the sense that there is just because honestly, the way that it works in the world, like if you look at like Vegas or any other part of the world where prostitution is legal, it's not about like, well, I like women and I like naked women, and so that's what I'm going to show you. It's like, what'll you buy? What are you going to buy? I'll put it up there. What will you pay for?
no, that makes
There is a massive variety of expression of objectification in like, I don't know, Tijuana, like places where people sell sex. And are we just imagining that like people decided to give up like half of the market for sex because nobody wants to buy a male stripper anymore? And everybody who sells sex is just like, I'm not going to make money off that.
There's probably an underground.
So here's my thing that now I'm hitting on, that it's just hitting me now. It's so you don't really like this movie. Because
that.
This is the world of the movie.
But here's the thing is that we are harping on this episode. This episode's going very different than I expected it to go, which is totally fine. But we are harping on the minuscule details. We haven't talked about the story almost at all.
I don't see those as minuscule details. And in fact, everything that I have mentioned in the episode so far, I see as a failure for the movie to really think futuristically and to think creatively and almost transhumanistly.
Sure, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that, like, when, say, the average Joe sits down to watch this movie, he's going to sit down and watch the story about a replicant who thinks he might be a real boy and then finds out he's not. And all the rest of the stuff, to people like us in this room who love film, you're spot on. Like, these are clear filmmaking problems. But did this movie... I guess the question that I'm left with now is, did this movie succeed in what it wanted to do of just tell this story? Did it tell the story, or did it fail in so many other fronts that we weren't able to enjoy it? Because I watch out of this movie, and every 3 times that I've watched it, I go, no, I love it. Like, I totally...
Same.
And I can see where you're coming from. Like, I don't disagree with you. I don't think you're wrong. For me, I like the story, and I like the way that the people in it tell the story, that it doesn't bother me. But I'm wondering, for somebody like you, did this movie just fail so hard at the other stuff that you weren't able to enjoy the story, or did you not like the story as well?
It's very mixed. I would, if asked to sum it up, I would say that it is a good story set in a flawed and incomplete vision of the future.
Okay. Kyle, what about you?
This was my favorite movie of 2017. So, and I agree with what you just said, Brian, about Ray's opinions. Like, I see your opinion. I see that it wasn't fleshed out. It just didn't bother me, and maybe that's something that I need to work on.
Why was this your favorite movie?
I love like I mentioned, when I was talking about I Think We're Alone Now. I love sci-fi that tells human stories, and so this is a movie about what it is to be human. I really like the story. I think it makes the first film a better film. I think it kind of, the relationship between Deckard and Rachel is problematic in the first film. And I think this tries to solve it a little bit because it says that they were in love and they had a child. The
only thing is, it's easy to say that when the woman's not present.
Well, yeah, but
sure, okay.
But
So
it's
a job making her
maybe he raped her and
electronic.
she got pregnant, and
He
okay.
also holds her safety in his hands. He's one of the few people who knows where she is and that she is a replicant, and she's kind of got no choice but to go with him.
Sure. So maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they weren't in love.
Sorry.
Maybe he's a terrible person. I think they were in love.
That's all that matters.
I agree with Kyle. I say sheepishly.
Everyone's allowed to have a different opinion.
And I also I love that this is I love the main character of Kay, and that we're told that he's a replicant, and then as the audience and as him as a character, we're told, oh, maybe he's not a replicant. And then no, he is a replicant, but we can see that he we were convinced, I think, that he was maybe part human, or at least born. So I loved how that played off of the original, in that we're not sure if Deckard's a replicant or human.
So I've heard the complaint that reveal comes too late. What do you think about that?
No, I thought it came at a proper point. I mean, it comes after, because Kay goes to find Deckard because he thinks he's his dad.
Yeah.
And they have that kind of awkward, absent father, hangout.
So here's the complaint in its entirety, and I somewhat agree with this. The movie does such a good job setting the stage of Kay is at least half human-ish, that you feel like you've almost outsmarted the movie. You feel like you have that thing where you're sitting I got this one figured out.
Yeah.
And it
Not
almost
me. Yeah.
it almost kind of pulls you out of it, so that by the time the table finally turns, it's oh wait, no, this is interesting. It might have lost people because it is a long movie. It's almost 3 hours, and that turn doesn't come till the beginning of the third act, right about.
Yeah.
So you have 2 acts of thinking that you're smarter than the movie, and then when it finally hits, if you were an average moviegoer, which I'm trying to look at this through the eyes of, because this movie did not do well. It was a big fucking flop. It made its money back internationally, but over here it did way worse than anticipated. Yeah. And I have a feeling that has something to do with it. So it's 3 hours long, and when you sit down to watch it, you think you've outsmarted it.
Well, and then you start to think, once you spend 2 acts of the movie thinking, I got this figured out, then you start noticing a lot of these other details that we've already discussed, and you start to make those minute details more you place more importance on them, because that's all you have in this movie, because I figured it out.
Yeah.
Until the movie's oh no, you didn't. I'm oh, okay, I'm back in the movie again. I'm back to it.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. However, one thing I kind of like that this movie did is it let us all make that assumption.
Yeah.
You expect the white male lead of your movie to be the golden child, chosen one that everyone's talking about. So the moment when they're oh, we all thought it was us too. Yeah. You're oh shit. And it's such a great
it's
moment.
very America. We all want to be special.
Yeah.
So messed up, but I love that feeling of disappointment.
Yeah.
That he had, because I was I feel it too.
Special.
But it's disappointing, and it's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's just you have this
He was so sure.
Thought I was the
when she's
Messiah.
It's the thematic equivalent of waving. Someone's waving to the person behind you, and you wave back, and you're oh, of course I don't know you.
Yeah.
I think the important thing, though, is that Kay has gone on this arc, and he did think that he was this chosen one. He finds out very disappointingly that he's not, but he still makes the choice to do the right thing and save Deckard and unite him with his actual child.
He chooses to play his part in what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Despite
And he's the one that figured out who she is,
Yeah.
too. It seems to me which we haven't talked about her character.
We haven't.
Yeah, we probably should.
There's
And
not that much to her character.
There isn't, but when her first and almost only scene happened, I was sad to see her go, because I was I love this character. I want to know more about her. So I was, when the reveal happens that, oh, it's her, and she's been trying to leave little breadcrumbs in these memories.
That's
to
one thing I want to discuss. Is she leaving breadcrumbs, or is it just her trying to do what she says in her one line, is take the little bit of freedom she has?
I don't even think. I think it was just she fucked up. Is what I think happened. It's because she said the best art. There's always something of the artist in their work. So I think she was told to make memories for replicants, and she does that, and she just makes them the best she can, which happens to have her own memories in there. And I don't think she realized when she was doing it how much the replicants were going to attach themselves to these what turned out to be real memories.
Because she does say that it's illegal to use real memories.
Yeah.
So assumedly she's not trying to use her real memories, but it just comes through.
Yeah.
I love
That kind of reminds me of actually the book in a way, the weird, if I might be saying it right, mercerism that they deal with in the book. That kind of that guiding memory as religion thing. I didn't think about that until now.
I didn't feel like they were accidents. I thought it was the type of thing where you don't have very much freedom, and you were given these set of rules, and like the number one rule is don't do this one. And with the don't do this one was the don't give out real memories. So it's almost like, how do you resist? If I just give this dollop to them, not like a whole memory, but just this dollop of a memory, will it really do that? And it's just like her version of getting herself out in the world that she doesn't get to experience. And then she has a lot of regret when she realizes, oh crap, this dollop was really like fucking you up right now.
Yeah, no, see, I got the sense when she says that's, it's illegal to use real memories. I got the sense that was like, no, officer, I don't have any drugs. And then when she does, scan his memory, I mean, she starts crying.
I was about to say, I love that reveal. But
I thought it was her like, oh, fuck, like, I'm done.
See, do you see that now, or do you see it when you watched it the first time?
See, when I saw it, I thought, like, she's like, oh, he is real. He is like the golden child. Like, those are real memories. But then, like, the minute it was real that he wasn't real, I was like, oh shit, no, she's crying because that's her.
Memory,
Oh, fuck. Like, it was the
that.
biggest moment that I've ever had in a movie of just that pulling me back to a very just small scene that's just under the radar.
And there's moments like that in this movie that make me continue to love Denny, the director, because I think he does those sort of reveals very well. He did it with Arrival very well. Like, there's moments where you don't really put importance on that. Then at the end of the movie, it's like, oh shit, no, that was really important. And her, because I think you're right. I think it was when we're watching the first time, it's her going, "You're half human. You're fucked."
Yeah.
And that's how I took it. Like, her crying was her just like, "Oh, I just talked to this guy he shouldn't be here."
Oh,
and
wow, we are so optimism, pessimism. You're like, you're fucked. I was like, oh, you're half human. What a glorious thing.
Oh, see, I took it as like, you're gonna die.
I took it as neither.
You're gonna die.
But now, like, with hindsight, I can look at it and go, oh, she's crying because she's reliving a memory that she experienced, and it was not a happy one at all. People were chasing her through a factory to beat her up and steal her toy. And two, she's being caught by a cop right now of, oh, I put real memories in robots.
That's a good point. He is a cop. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that scene has so many different layers to it depending on which time it is you watching the movie. If it's your first time, it's one thing. If it's your second time, it's something completely different.
Man, I could have done without those expository flashback voiceovers, though.
Yeah.
We're nostalgic for
you gotta have some bullshit voiceover.
We're nostalgic for that cut.
Don't worry, they'll make more versions of this film that do and do not have
That was definitely for the cheap seats. That was for the people watching this, at 8:00 on a Saturday night in the multiplex.
It's for the people who had a bathroom break during the important scene, and now they come back. It's like, oh, thank God they did this, because I really had to pee in this 3-hour movie.
What was her name? I don't even remember it.
Anna, the memory maker.
Yeah,
I think it was Anna.
That sounds right.
Anna Droid.
And I know I've seen it in other movies before. I've seen it in more than one storyline, more than one movie. We're like, where's the best place to hide the thing the person's looking for? Hide it in their house.
Yeah.
They'll never look there.
Yeah.
Tell them it's something else.
Yeah. Tell them it's something else and hide it in their house. Have her get employed by them. Have her autoimmune. Does she have autoimmune? Who knows? But she can't leave this room.
I don't think she does.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's just a way of hiding her.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated.
And who did she think were her parents? The ones that
she was
had
an
the
orphan.
No, she said, my parents had all of the papers to get off world, but I couldn't leave because of my autoimmune.
Well, so I think she grew up in an orphanage.
Did she get adopted?
Well, I don't know if she got adopted, but I think if she grew up in an orphanage, it was just like, yeah, your parents went off world. You're here, kid.
You think the orphanage told her that?
Yeah, I think that's part of the hiding.
I mean, if Lenny James was still in charge, he's a cockmunch. So,
But that's I think
I don't know
it was
if she has any memories of being raised by
Rachel.
She modified her own memories.
No,
oh shit!
Rachel died in child labor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with a spacer. The guy
Sapper.
Sapper.
Yeah,
Martin.
Sapper.
Because he's the one with the footy, so he had her for a little while. How long did he have her before he sent her to the orphanage?
That's a good point.
Maybe by her parents, she meant her adoptive parents.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I don't know.
The ones that were going to take her off world. Maybe somebody then bought her from the orphanage and
It's possible.
and then failed to take her off
I'm
world.
really obsessed with the toy or the machine that she uses to create
It
memories.
looks like they took two lenses and melded them
Yeah,
together.
it kind of did. But like, I'm just
I
every
think
time.
it's a great prop. I know
I
It's
loved
a very
it.
good prop.
it totally looks like a Bartek, a focus puller, but I I think it's one of the best props in like recent cinema history.
Okay, so I'm not alone. I feel because like every time that scene comes up, I'm like, how does it work?
I was
It's like twisting it and making a birthday cake. I'm like, I'm fascinated.
yeah. No, during the length of this movie, I was kind of dipping a little bit because I watch these movies late at night.
Yeah.
When that thing came on, I was like up in my seat. I was sitting like, that is so cool. I can feel it. I can feel the click click. Oh, that click click click. And even the magnifying glass in the lab when they were doing that click click.
Yeah.
I was like, I believed that they were zooming in. Like, I don't like the enhance,
Yeah.
but this had like the click version of it. I was like, it was really cool.
Yeah,
I
the thing in the lab I thought harkened back really well to the Voight-Comp machine.
Oh,
And how
sure,
it's
yeah.
like this old tech but super
Yeah.
high tech. So
It's like new tech
I thought
skin.
that was cool.
It was that
yeah.
like it was like what Ridley Scott used to do really well, where it's like
And
it's
even-
kind of current but new.
Yeah, even when he's like looking through the like DNA
Yeah.
files and stuff, it's like very tangible, but still.
I just like to imagine myself in a room with that memory maker, just going,
Oh, yeah.
I suck at this.
It's the Fry's musical instrument at the concert hall.
Yeah, that would be me with memories.
Guys, I just wanted to give a shout out because we haven't talked about the fight scene at the end that is both contained to a small space and underwater.
We still didn't actually talk about love either.
Yeah.
Well, we've
I
been
just want to give a
talking
shout out
for
to that fucking fight
There's
scene
a-
because that was amazing.
Guys, it's already
and
been a year
probably
later since we
pain in
started
the
this.
ass to
we've
shoot.
already been talking for a while. So
I'm sorry.
what do
Give a
we
shout
want
out
to
to
hit?
it.
I really enjoyed this fight sequence in the way that it gave it multiple layers of intensity of the two of them being on the same level physically, because he hadn't really had to deal with that quite as much in the rest of the film.
I win.
You had the cramped space of the ship, you had the Harrison Ford almost dying, and you had the water constantly hitting you. The only thing that annoyed me is however much I enjoyed Love and her character and how like desperate she was to follow her orders. It just is a weird trope thing where it's like, she's a female fighter. She's really great with her thighs.
Kick.
Kick. I'm like, come on, girl.
She's got her kick pants
girls
on.
can punch. Girls can punch.
I have the worst, almost like internet level criticism. Why does an android drown or strangle?
I mean, that's
They bleed. If it bleeds, you can kill it.
yeah.
What use is a robot for
In space.
off-world use?
Yeah.
I mean, what else would you expect
That-
Jared Leto to build?
Asphyxiates? Yeah.
He's got to be able to kill him.
No, it's a valid complaint.
It is.
So it's just like that fight had
He's
to
sitting in
end
the dark.
somehow.
I think I've made a mistake in the design.
Just an android breathes next to him. He's like, "Ooh, that might have been a bad idea."
Shoot.
Get rid of the lungs.
I was determined to make ovaries, and I made lungs.
It just occurred to me about the fight scene. Maybe they confine it to the shuttle to actually give it some geography at all, because otherwise we're just in the open water outside the
Yeah,
seawall.
that makes sense.
Because suddenly they're in like the vast ocean,
Yeah, and then they're just sort of
and then they walked back to it. Like there were some weird geography things outside the thing. So yeah,
maybe the shuttle just exists as a way to anchor us in the space of this, the set that they're in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and I think it's just it's the ticking clock of whether
yeah,
the water
it's
rising.
raising
Right
water
or
is
not,
always a good motivator.
Certainly.
Go watch Dunkirk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
so
didn't-
stressful.
But to speak to that, gorgeous. This movie's gorgeous.
Oh god,
Oh,
the fucking statue, the feet statue things, that whole like the way that was shot and the
Okay.
coloring.
That one sequence, does it make anyone else think of Bastion going through the two
Yes,
Yes.
things?
yes.
Never-ending story.
Yeah, like I said, the statues are a little bit more horny in this one, but they're
speaking speaking
They
of
don't.
how
They don't shoot lasers out of their
Yeah.
eyes.
speaking of how this was shot, and we just mentioned Dunkirk,
Yeah.
is Deakins going to win
No.
an Oscar this year,
absolutely
or
not.
is Dunkirk
Roger Deakins
gonna
loses.
win?
That's just his lot in life. He's one of the best cinematographers out there. He's never gonna get a statue.
He actually makes me like yellow. Most of the time when people overuse yellow in movies, I'm like, oh, yes, you're Soderbergh, cool.
Well, it's getting to a point where like frame one happens. It's like, oh, did Deakins do this? And then I'm like, frame one, like.
Yeah. Oh, it's gorgeous, but all of his movies are. And
Yeah.
he will continue to lose. I don't know.
Someone else in the Academy recognized this.
I think this one is more bold choices in cinematography than Dunkirk, but the fact that they strapped IMAX cameras.
Dunkirk was very isolated.
Yeah,
thing.
but just the very little of we got IMAX cameras in 1920s planes and flew them is like, well, that's going to impress a lot of Academy voters, especially if they're all cinematographer voters, which they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're.
But you can
I mean,
also
I think the one thing that might just work in Deacon's favor is that he's Roger Deakins, and
Yeah.
everyone knows that he hasn't won.
Yeah.
So
And this one
it's,
is very well shot.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gonna
Yeah,
depend
he's-
upon.
I really enjoyed the way they melded miniatures into the real life
Yeah.
sets. Because I don't feel like they did too much of CG backgrounds. They definitely did. They always do.
Well, they had to
But
at a certain
the
point.
separation between model and CG was almost non-existent for me. It all looked real.
And they were determined to do as much in camera as possible, which I think helped the look of it a lot.
I'm also very happy with how many inserts this movie had. I love inserts, guys. Inserts make everything
The only
better.
insert we didn't like was the rewatch of Joy going into the rain, and then she puts her hand out, and then we're both like, God, that one knuckle right there, that's protruding so much. I'm like, I don't think that's her hand.
Anna de Armas has a wicked wrist bone. I think we should move to quotes.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking for almost an hour and a half. This
Oh,
is a
no,
long episode.
shit. God, we could talk for 3 hours.
You really could.
there is that much movie.
I can go first. So my favorite quote is actually a love quote. Because I think she just had some really just stellar lines. And my favorite one that she said was, "You can't hold the tide with a broom." So I love that. It's just like such good foreshadowing. If they wanted to do a third one of like where this is going, like you are not doing enough to stop what we're doing. And I think that was really a cool moment. And she delivered it fucking awesome. She did every line in this movie. That's mine.
I liked the Somali dude, which we didn't talk about, who, like, that dude is so awesome. When he...
Bakhtat Abi, I think his name is.
Never tried to pronounce it.
I'm the captain now.
That guy. But I liked when he was just like, "You want a horse?" And then later he's like, doesn't want a horse. He says he doesn't want a horse, and then later on again he's like, "You want a horse? A goat?"
He's determined to get him a horse.
Yeah, it's just like, I can get these things.
He was in some good movies this year. He had that one and Good Time. Although he did not have a good time.
Mine also is in reference to animals, and it's a nice callback to the original. Kay asks Deckard in regards to his dog, "Is it real?" Deckard says, "I don't know, ask him." You know, because it's great, because in the original when Deckard sees the owl, you know, he wonders if it's real. You know, and he's curious himself if it's real. So just, I thought it was a great callback, and it kind of tells us where Deckard is. He's like, I don't fucking care. It's a dog.
Did they play that scene too? Like in one of like the
Yes.
feedback things? Yeah.
Yeah.
So just in case you didn't catch it as a reference to the first one, they made sure you knew. Like, look how smart we are.
Still, they did that better than other movies.
It's true, yeah.
Where
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was being hit over the head.
Remember, I love this movie, but I will happily take shots at it.
Yeah. Going back to how you said that this future is all about the worst people, i.e. Mitch McConnell, being in control of the world. They got a quote that happens rather early in the film. It's when Kay goes back to tell her all the things she found, and Lieutenant Joshi / Robin Wright says, "You're hurt. I'm not paying for that." And I'm like,
I like that. Yeah.
So Republican.
Oh, it's so Republican. That took me a second to realize how Republican it was.
And then you just get sad. I'll go. The quote I like, we referenced it, and I think we may have said it, but when Joy was like, "I'm done with you now," to Mariette. I bad with names in this
Mackenzie
movie.
Davis.
Yeah.
She's so fucking
Say,
good.
"Quiet now. I've been inside you. Not as much there as you think." And I was like, "Oh, what a dig!" Like, if AI can
That's a
hurt,
very good insult.
So
Yeah,
petty.
if AI can
Such
be
a
like,
good insult.
like I winced. I was like, "Oh, ow," for a machine.
If only she just walked out going, "Burn!"
Yo, what up? Yeah, I suck. And then she hits the door with her face. I have a very different version of this movie.
Apparently. More shout out from Mackenzie Davis though. You should watch *Halt and Catch Fire*. She's fucking
so good.
awesome.
She's in, I saw the new Jason Reitman Diablo Cody movie,
You
Tully,
did.
Oh,
and she's
Yeah.
great in it.
she's the lead in that, isn't she?
No, Charlize Theron's the lead,
Oh, okay.
but she's a
She's
good,
first
solid
build on IMDb.
supporting. Yeah,
While watching that trailer, I'm like, is this my future?
I mean, she's the title character. So.
Oh, okay, got it.
We're
Last but not
going.
least.
My favorite one is, this is deceptively simple. It's when Robin Wright is yelling at Kay and she says, "You don't even look like you on the inside," after he fails his emotional baseline test. It speaks to the way that, I mean, the whole emotional baseline test that they do is great, and is full of lots of coded references to, Pale Fire and emotional programming and things like that. And she's angry because they have figured out a way to run emotional diagnostics basically on their replicants, and he's failing this, and it illustrates her sort of perception of Kay as a tool that you can run diagnostics on and understand. And she thinks that, I mean, to even say you look like this on the inside is like a lie. You can't tell what anyone looks like on the inside. And it's both, the human arrogance towards replicants, and her view of him as a tool, that she thinks that just by reading some test results, they can see what his emotional state is, or where his loyalty lies, or if he's dangerously close to snapping and murdering a human.
Yeah. That is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, all welled into.
I would
You
fail
don't look
that
right.
emotional baseline every time, because every time I watch those sequences, I'm like, I'm getting stressed out here.
Yeah. Can I add one more too? Because
Sure.
there's another part to the quote that you gave
Yeah.
that I really like, and it's still love as she's about to murder Robin Wright, and it says, she says, "You tiny thing, in the face of the fabulous new, your only thought is to kill it for fear of change." And that's very Republican as well.
Yeah.
That's a great line. You know what I really like about that line? I hate most of Jared Leto's dialogue in this movie.
I hate most of Jared Leto.
I agree. And
His face does not do it.
but when love, and he talks in all of this very metaphorical, flowery sort of, but when love delivers it, it's more concrete, it's more specific, and it's, the metaphor that she's drawing is very clear. She's speaking, of course, in the language of her master, but when she says it, you can actually understand what she means by it, and it's very well phrased. And it makes sense that she talks in a Wallace-esque manner. But when she said that, I was like, oh, thank God. This is what all of this stupid-ass dialogue is supposed to do.
And
That one worked.
The final thing I'll say about Love is I feel like we should have swapped out Jared Leto for her on the cover of the Blu-ray, but that's just my opinion.
He's famous, sir.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah, I get it. He's more popular.
As in, we
but-
didn't talk about Jared Leto's character at all because
Yeah.
we all kind of hate him.
Yeah,
I mean, he serves the right purpose, and it's
it
a
is
character that you're kind of
misogynistic-
supposed to hate.
It's a
So
misogynistic society. You gotta have an
Yeah, it
asshole
works.
man at the top of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it totally worked. I felt like
I felt like his character was over-designed.
sure, yeah.
Yeah,
My,
no.
He is the new Johnny Depp
my
in
back
so many ways.
my backup quote was just one word when Kay is talking to Gaff. Is that Edward James Olmos' character? And they're talking about Deckard, and he says that he's retired. Just because retired is the term that Blade Runners use for dead. And I think they would have never done it because, like we said, you gotta get people in those seats somehow. But it would have been amazing. How amazing would this film have been if we didn't know Harrison Ford was in it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then that
yeah.
line holds even more weight, and it's maybe Gaff killed Deckard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have
that-
we know that Harrison Ford's coming, so then it doesn't hold as much weight. But when he first said that in theaters, I was like, "Oh man, this
that
would be
would've been
so
a good reveal.
great."
Yeah.
But they would never be able to do that in today's
no way.
need for money.
That was one
Which
of
still
the
didn't work.
director actually complained about that during the Kingsman trailers for the newest one.
Yeah.
He got really mad that they showed
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth in the movie.
I'm just really mad they made that movie, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole. We'll talk about that movie someday.
I don't. It's another one I'm not sure
I
I just
hope
ever want to
not.
rewatch. It's, ugh.
Based off our conversation about it,
Yeah.
and what you told me, I have no interest.
Yeah, it's just not my favorite, but that's okay. So review system for this one, I think will be easy, but we'll see. I do have to say, you can't say Fury Road.
God damn
You've
it.
used it too many times.
You son of a bitch.
You use that a lot.
Because I guarantee.
Because it applies a lot.
Because I guarantee you'd use it for this one.
I would. I was already planning to. I didn't care what you said.
Movies that take place in a shitty future.
God damn it.
I'm going to use Fury Road. I'm kidding.
That probably applies to you, Emily.
Oh.
But I do have mine because I thought about it a while ago because I cheat like that.
Can we use the original?
If you hadn't just asked, I would have been like, okay, but now that you've asked, I can say no. I'm going to go with The Rover. It's a movie that not a lot of people even realize takes place in a future, but it's more like an immediate future after the world has ended. And I love that movie so much, but mostly because it tells a really kind of simple story in kind of a grand way, and it's just shot unbelievably well. And I think this one's kind of the same thing. The story is not super complex, but it's told in a complex way, and it's shot beautifully.
Got mine. Dredd. Another movie.
With Sylvester Stallone, yeah, great movie.
Not that one. Dredd, not Judge Dredd. The one starring Carl Urban, who everyone knows I adore.
The guy who acts with his mouth.
And he's so good at it. Talk about emoting just with your lips.
Oh man, him and Tom Hardy in a movie.
I find Carl Urban to be way more attractive. But Dredd is was a surprise of a movie for me. Because, the original's not great. Not at all. And I've only had the most base knowledge of the comic book. And then I saw that movie. I'm like, this future sucks. I don't want to live in it, but I love watching it. And that's the same emotions I have to Blade Runner. Because, Blade Runner, not good towards women. Don't really want to live there. Beyond the fact that it's a post-nuclear war something world where everything looks like it sucks in Blade Runner. I love watching it.
Yeah.
The Road Warrior.
Should have seen that coming.
Yeah. Well, no, but it applies because I feel like he is a very stoic character. He is I wouldn't say anti-hero, but he's definitely not a hero. And by the end, he has found a community that he's sort of reluctantly decided to belong to. And he saves the day.
That works. I'm annoyed at my own rule because I should have included all of Mad Max, but that's on me.
I will find out your call.
All right, I'm going to say Minority Report
Okay.
because it's also based on a Philip K. Dick story. Also, I think one of my favorite looking movies. And I guess story-wise, it's our main character is cop in a thrown into a position that's kind of turning his world on itself, and then there's a real reveal at the end that kind of changes everything for him. So
Yeah, that kind of works. I haven't watched Minority Report in a long time. I really liked that when it came out, though.
Yeah, have I seen it? I think so.
Good.
It was during my I don't like Tom Cruise phase, so
it's one of my favorite movies of all
Yeah.
time.
The one I would like to compare to would be Hardware.
Never seen Hardware.
Hardware is
neither have
great.
I.
Hardware is an early 90s cyberpunk movie with Dylan McDermott, and I forget the female lead.
Those piercing blue eyes.
He's a kind of like a road warrior-esque figure, but he's a scrapper out in the wastes, and every now and then he comes back into the city to see his girlfriend, who is this crazy welding metal artist, in this big loft in a super decrepit building. And it's very similar to J.F. Sebastian's apartment in the Bradbury, except with robots instead of dolls. And it's a fascinating, really there's lots of world building.
Yeah.
At one point, the two characters fight about their future, and they're like, well, the only thing that there is to do is to, be a smuggler or to go into the whatever the space flying service is, and then you get irradiated, and it portrays it as if there's just a shitty world with very few subsistence job options for most people, And one thing I really like about it is it manages to portray a dystopian future that does not rely heavily on portraying the exploitation of women. I can't remember the main character's name, of course, but she's just a metal worker. And she lives in this big, weird loft and creates a robot that, with the addition of this weird MacGuffin from the wastes, tries to kill her, admittedly. Because the movie needs a plot.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a shitty world for the average person. And it's not like exceptionally shitty for women. It's just shitty all around. The movie has a really great early 90s industrial soundtrack. And it's very stylish, and it's one of the early cyberpunk classics.
I should
We should
probably
check
watch
it
it. Yeah.
It's great.
It sounds a lot better than Hackers, which everyone tried to tell me.
Hackers
I
is
love
amazing.
Hackers. It is amazing.
know.
Our Venn diagram is
well,
growing.
we've got 3 things now.
Hackers has some really good touchstones to it. It's very of its time, but you can't just like.
That's one of the Hackers is one of those movies that I should have seen when I was in the 90s. Because then when I saw it 5 years ago, when you made me watch it, I was just like, oh.
But Johnny Lee
what?
Miller. Everyone loves Johnny Lee Miller.
You just gotta love it for what it is.
Yeah.
I try. I
Matthew
do. I love
Lillard.
it.
Yeah, and
I
Matthew
love to
Lillard.
think about myself if I had
Crash and
seen
burn.
it in the 90s.
All right, John.
Okay.
There's only so long we can kill time for you.
All right. So I'm going to go with, let's see, make sure I don't double up, A Scanner Darkly.
Oh.
Where it's like, it's,
That's
What-
animated with Keanu Reeves, right?
right,
Good old Linklater.
where it, for me, is more fun to talk about, as we're doing now, than necessarily watch, but brings up some
Totally
interesting
agree
things.
with that. Never want to watch that thing again.
Yeah, I've never had the urge to rewatch Scanner Dark.
Right. Whereas as much as I liked what I saw here, I'm never going to rewatch this movie again.
Right.
But similarly, I got way more out of dissecting it with you guys here at the table than I did necessarily watching it. And
That happens to me a lot at this table.
I feel good about that.
Yeah, that's
Scanner
good.
Darkly is also PKD, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
A lot of him at the table today.
Yeah.
A lot of dick at the table.
If only.
But not in the movie.
The one thing is, if they did have super large dick male things in that Vegas scene,
Sure.
they would have all fallen off. He would have been, instead of walking around shoes, he would have been walking around dicks.
Which would have been awesome. You just totally sold me on this.
Then why? But it could just be man ass everywhere. It would just be like, the entrance to a pleasure hall would just be a great big sculpture of man ass.
Just walk into the ass.
I was just reminded of 2 things that
Goatsy?
3 things.
I was just reminded of 2 things that I wanted to bring up because I'm not certain if they're just me thinking these, but I assume that K was named after Philip K. Dick.
I would assume so as well.
Yeah.
And also the toy horse, I'm fairly certain used to be a toy unicorn.
Wasn't
I
there a
don't know
unicorn
if
in the first
anybody.
movie?
Yeah, the origami unicorn and the
Oh,
dream that Deckard has. I'm fairly certain.
Is there a notch on the top of it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Very clever.
Interesting.
Some good details.
So with that,
They got some details right.
That's the box quote. They got some details.
They got some details right.
I'm going to bring today's episode to a close.
Okay.
I think we've covered about as much of this as we can. I think there's probably another hour or so we could keep going into it because there's a lot to unpack in this movie. And who knows? Maybe we'll do that at some point. Probably not. So next week we have Chewie's Choice. I need to stress this as much as possible because I did not like this movie.
No, you didn't.
Not
Not very people did.
no one did except for Chewie. So everyone can thank Chewie for next week's choice, which
I'm
is
excited about it.
Geostorm.
Are you ready for some space action where men are yelling at each other with testosterone?
I
literally
fucking
dripping
am.
from the walls.
This sounds amazing.
It's a hell of a ride. So it'll be a
Is
fun
it
episode.
better or worse than Battleship? From
It's-
your perspective.
it's a
From my
different
perspective,
flavor.
it is nowhere near as good as Battleship.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like,
less
I will
excited.
watch this
Yeah.
on repeat. Keep Battleship away from me.
Battleship has a legless man boxing an alien.
Right?
I bring this up all the time because it's very crucial to the enjoyment of that
what?
movie.
You had me so like, okay, so this is Brian's pinnacle moment of Battleship. This is the part I'm gonna like. And then it happened, and I went,
My
I still
moment
feel-
is a chicken burrito moment. But anyway, we're
I
getting
still
off.
feel pretty good about it. So again, check out Check 15. They're wonderful. You should do it. And you should definitely watch Drunk History because it's currently one of my favorite shows on TV. I'm just happy to be somewhere in the orb of it. It's pretty cool. Anything else we need to plug? Oh, I wrote an article. I've been getting some pretty good feedback. I'd ask everyone to keep reading it because I'm pretty proud of this one. It's
Read it again.
Read it again. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think of it. It's all about why I think our initial gut reaction to do rapid reactions to movies is a bad thing.
it is.
I did read that, and that's a very good article.
Thank
Immediately
you.
when I read it, I was like, "This is stupid," and then I was like, "Wait, that's the point." And then I reread it and thought about it for a while. And I agree.
But yeah,
You still think it's stupid?
Not anymore. My gut reaction was wrong.
but it was funny because as I was writing, I'm like, oh shit, that's why I started this podcast, and I did not realize it at the time. So it was kind of a fun,
Because we are after the
self-exploring.
I did think
article to write.
like first sentence is like, I wonder if he realizes this is the impetus for his podcast.
Nope, I didn't realize it until about halfway through the article. I'm like, oh shit, it
Self-realization.
was pretty
Brian's
fun.
usually more self-aware.
Yeah, that one I
Was this your replicant moment?
It was. Yep. Oh, I'm a real boy. So thank you so much for everybody for coming out, and